This isn't a dramatic story. It's a quiet one, but it's one that changed how I think about my body and how quickly things can shift. It started outside, during a completely normal moment, when I was in the backyard doing some yard work. Nothing felt rushed or out of place. It was just another ordinary day, doing something routine, without any sense that anything was about to change. Then, out of nowhere, I was suddenly stung by a bee right in the middle of my left ear. The pain was instant, sharp, deep, and intense in a way that's hard to explain unless you felt it yourself. It wasn't just a surface sting. It felt like it went straight through my ear. My ear started swelling almost immediately, and the pain didn't fade or come in waves. It stayed constant and strong, like my body was locked into it. It just kept building. For about 5 minutes, I stayed upright. I walked around the backyard, trying to endure it, telling myself it would settle if I just pushed through. I kept thinking that people get stung by bees all the time and that this was probably no different. I didn't want to overreact to what I assumed was just a bee sting. I tried to distract myself, to keep moving, to wait it out. But instead of easing, my body started doing something else entirely. I began to feel lightheaded, and my vision started narrowing into tunnel vision, where the edges of everything feel like they're slowly closing in. It wasn't sudden panic. It was more like my body quietly pulling away from me. I sat down on an outdoor swing, hoping that stopping for a moment would help. I remember focusing on my breathing and telling myself to stay calm, thinking I just needed to pause and let it pass. After a short while, I decided I should head inside. I stood up, started walking toward the house, and that's the last thing I remember. Everything after that, I only know because my sister was there. She was inside at the time and later wrote it all out for me step by step, because I couldn't remember any of it myself. She said that when I came inside, we were talking normally for a moment. My voice sounded normal. I looked normal. There were no warning signs and nothing unusual happening. Then, mid-sentence, I suddenly stopped. My eyes rolled back, and I collapsed straight forward. There was no stumble, no attempt to catch myself, and no reflex at all. I didn't put my hands out. I didn't slow the fall. I fell face first onto the hard tiles before anyone could react, narrowly missing the table. It happened so fast that no one could have stopped it. She said I was unconscious, face down, with my chest pressed into the floor, and she couldn't see me breathing properly. My airway was at risk. Immediately, my sister ran over to me and took control of the situation. She rolled me onto my side to open my airway, stabilized my head, and checked my breathing. When my body started shaking, she used her arms and legs to keep me from flailing or hurting myself and stayed there holding me until it stopped. I regained consciousness before she called 000. I woke up still on the ground, breathing heavily and labored, completely confused. I didn't know where I was, why I was on the floor, or what had happened. I remember asking what was going on more than once and trying to move, even though nothing made sense yet. She spoke firmly to me, telling me to stay on my side and not get up. Only once I was conscious and breathing steadily did she call 000. She stayed on the line and followed the instructions she was given. My mum arrived as fast as she could, even with an injured foot. She found my sister holding me in the recovery position with the phone still connected to emergency services. Throughout everything, my sister stayed focused on keeping me still. She made sure I stayed on my side and didn't try to move or get up while we waited for the ambulance to arrive. I stayed on the ground for about 20 minutes waiting for the ambulance. Time felt slow and strangely quiet. During that entire time, the bee stinger was still lodged in my ear, and my ear was swollen, painful, and reactive, even as everything else was being dealt with. When the paramedics arrived, one of the first things they did was remove the stinger, although later in the emergency department they discovered that a fragment was still embedded. They checked my vitals, monitored me, and confirmed that everything my sister had done was correct. I was stable enough to slowly stand and walk to the ambulance. There were no lights and no sirens, just a calm, steady drive to the hospital, which somehow made everything feel more real. At the hospital, I was admitted fairly quickly and placed in the emergency department short stay area. They attempted blood tests but couldn't get a vein. I had lacerations to my eyebrow and eyelid, and my eyebrow was sutured using 3 stitches. I was monitored for around 3 hours, mostly resting and waiting while my body settled. During that time, the doctors explained that they couldn't say for certain whether this was an allergic reaction to the bee venom or a syncope episode, a sudden drop in blood pressure triggered by intense pain or stress. Because of that uncertainty, I was prescribed an EpiPen as a precaution and referred to an immunologist to determine whether I'm actually allergic to bee venom. At this stage, it's about a 50-50 possibility. Recovery has honestly not been too bad. In the beginning, I was very sore and swollen, but now that it's been almost 2 weeks, everything has started to settle down. Now it's more about getting used to a scar I didn't have before and adjusting to the idea that I need to be a little more careful and aware when I'm outside. The hardest part for me is the blank space, the moment where my body took over and my mind disappeared, and knowing that someone else had to act for me in that moment without hesitation. I don't sit with fear about that. I sit with gratitude. I'm still healing, still waiting for answers, and still carrying an EpiPen just in case. This isn't the end of the story. It's just a chapter. And for now, I'm taking things slowly and paying closer attention to my body and for bees. Always looking out for bees.